Hello, everyone. Welcome to Small Business Runway IG Business Series. We are back again. There's just been a break in transmission. I hate when this happens, when technology is just like, no, not today. But we're back, and I hope I have you guys on a better line. There was a bit of a delay and a drag on my side, so I could literally hear myself speaking, and then I could see the actions and the words sort of happening or after I speak. So I really just thought, no, let's just connect on a better line. So today is no different. We have another business leader, somebody who's doing amazing work in his field of business and industry. And of course, we're going to wait for Instagram Live to just invite a few more people, tell them we're live, so that people can start joining us, so that we can have this conversation with Timothy. But Timothy Maurice is our guest today. He is a brand building specialist, as well as he's done extensive research in neuropsychology. So we're hoping to really pick his brain today, and get to know what are the things that we should be doing just to grow our personal brands and also our businesses as as entrepreneurs, as small business owners. So really excited to hang out with you guys today. I hope Timothy has just joined us again. Thank you for that. There was a little bit of a break in transmission, as I said, but we are going to be able to add you onto the live right now. Okay, so without further ado, I'm a business builder. I speak, I teach, and I train small businesses on, with practical tools on how to grow their business. I'm the founder of Small Business Runway, and recently just, a broadcaster on Alex FM as well. So, that is what I do. But today's not about me. Today is about our special guests, like we do every Monday. We bring people that can help you in both your personal and business development. And so Timothy Maurice is live with us right now. Let's welcome him so that we can have this conversation. Welcome, Timothy.
Hey, I love your voice. I love you've got that thing. You know that thing. You've got that thing. You got that thing, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No.
So I'm not going to waste any of your time because I obviously want to just respect your time. But Timothy, I've been following your work for a number of years now. You are a 5 times a best-selling author now. So I was quite surprised by that because last time I checked it was 4. So it's amazing that we just keep building and building. And also you are you're an author, you're a columnist, you are a thought leader, and obviously then, you've done extensive research in neuropsychology, which is then the reason why I thought, oh my goodness, this is the perfect person to invite to this live, just to have a conversation about how do we use then our minds and our brains and really just what's happening up here to make sure that we then, tell the stories we need to tell and build the businesses that we need to build, really. So welcome to Small Business Runway.
And thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for the platform. I think all of us guests are lucky to be on your platform to engage your vision. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so it's really awesome. Okay, cool. Now that we had our wonderful moment, let me just say that there are 2 ways to think about this conversation. One is, how do we get the most as entrepreneurs out of our own brains? And then the other thing is, how do you access the brains of your consumers and your stakeholders? What do you do? Let me give you a specific example on the latter. Let's say, for example, you have a coffee shop or you have some service where if someone gets 10 stamps on a card, right? Yeah. Or they visit your place 10 times. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in people's brains that you could leverage, and if you understand it, you can get more out of your customer. So one study showed that if you have a blank card and you need 8 stamps for you to get a free coffee or a free car wash or free something, right? You would be better off if you want to use 8. You'd be better off to have 10 stamps and then give them 2 free stamps. Now, this is really important because the idea in the brain is this. People want to feel like there is progress. People want to feel like there is momentum, there's movement. So what you do is you overcome the hurdles in the brain by saying, I'm going to give you 2 free stamps on your card, and all you need is 8. Instead of giving somebody a card saying, here is your card, and you need 8 stamps, and you don't give them anything free. On both examples, they need 8 stamps.
8 stamps, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But by giving them 2 free and saying you will get to 10, they are more likely to come back to your business. They're more likely because the brain wants to have progress. The brain wants to feel like there is involvement in the brand. So this is very important. So basically what I'm going to be sharing throughout this conversation is behavioral psychology, understanding neuroscience, understanding how the brain works, to apply it to your business, to apply it to your friendships, to apply it to your partnerships. This is very important. We call this the endowed progress effect, okay? So the endowed progress effect is you are demonstrating progress with your client. So I do this when I'm consulting. Let's say, for example, I want you to be, you want me, or let's say I'm trying to get you as a client. So I send you a proposal, okay? I send you a proposal, and I will say to you, instead of saying you have 5 consultations, I will say you already have 1 for free, and all you need is 4. Deep down, I've already known that the process is going to take 4. I will adjust the hours, but I need you to see that I am bringing you along and helping you overcome the resistance of getting started. So people are afraid to get started. People have this resistance in the mind that anything that's new is challenging. So by giving people something for free, you get them moving without them realizing it.
Yeah. Okay, so you're already delving into the we're already putting meat on this, right? We're putting flesh to this conversation. But I want us to then start here because I think for most people, okay, I mean, let me not speak down on the audience as well. Everybody is smart on this live, so let's just assume that maybe they've heard the word neuropsychology and brain building, or they have an idea of the concepts. But how would you then define what is like the mind, and like what is how the the mind versus like the brain?
Sure.
Which is like a sort of concept that just how would you just explain that to us? Let's start there.
All right, I agree, let's take a step back. So this conversation is going to involve 2 things: 1, neuroscience, and 2, behavioral science. Why do I care about these? Let's throw the big terms out the window, okay?
Yeah.
The only thing we care about in this conversation is how the environment, how images, how concepts impact your brain and your body, your nervous system. How does looking at a Louis Vuitton bag impact what happens in your brain? Okay? If you look at a BMW versus a Mercedes, how does it influence what's happening inside of your body? So that's neuroscience, how the environment impacts your brain and your body. The second thing is behavioral science. It's how we make decisions. If I decide, let's say, for example, I'm trying to get your number. What is it inside of you that will trigger interest and arouse you to want to give me your phone number? On a very simple level, I'm interested in, my work is interested in how you make decisions and how the environment impacts your brain and how concepts and stories impact your brain. So here's another simple example. So I've been away in America for about 4 or 5 months. Let's talk about how people think about South Africa. If you're in China, you're in America, you're in Europe, you're in other parts of Africa, Nigeria, whether you invest in South Africa or not can be as simple as how South Africa is portrayed in Coming to America, the movie. Let's say Trevor Noah mentions South Africa in a particular way. Let's say Nomzamo Mbata mentions South Africa. All of a sudden, people get a warm feeling about the country. And then they go, I'm interested. All of a sudden, something emotional triggers inside of their body. Then they go, even though I don't really have a lot of wealth and money, I want to invest in the country. That's behavioral science. When something emotional triggers you to want to engage in a country. I interviewed over 100 people in New York about a year or so ago, and I have it on my podcast, The Brain and Brand Show. I interviewed over 100 people, and I asked them, when I say South Africa, what comes to mind? These are random people. I took a microphone. I took this microphone, Lena. I took this microphone into the streets of New York, and I asked over 100 people, when I say South Africa, what comes to mind? And what I was curious about, I wanted to know what was driving people's perception of the country. I mean, there was one couple from the UK. They got into a little argument. The guy was like, I think it's beautiful for surfing. I love to surf. I saw some reality show where they're surfing. I think it's the most amazing surf place. This other girl, she said, well, I saw some crime thing on CNN. And both of them had a different idea of the country based on what they had been exposed to. And how they felt about the country is what I'm interested in. How do you overcome how people feel? How do you get people to feel bonded to your brand? As an entrepreneur, when you think about Maps Maponya, when people think about Buns Out, for example, he's a great local case study. He's trending today. He's very smart. When he launched that brand, he and I discussed having a books and buns night, where we had a night where people came to discuss books. It was about experiencing the emotional connection of the brand and not just eating a burger. This is very important. When you think about launching any type of business, what is the emotional relationship that's beyond logic? Because people will pay more for Maps's burger than somebody else if they can get a photo, if they can be part of the social media conversation, if they can go to Buns Out and they can dress up, they can take a selfie and go, I was at Buns Out. You see, then the price of the burger starts to go down because the emotional value of the burger has gone up. And so this is what neuroscience and behavioral science is about. Forget about the deep terms. It's about what is the emotional connection. If you are Woolworths, if you are any brand, if your small business runway, for example, you could get people to create sort of a runway idea as an entrepreneur and act like they're walking on a runway and get that feel of strutting into their future. That is an emotional way for get people to be tied into your brand, for example. And so the idea, and you know what? So many brands are starting to use behavioral science, but not a lot of people are thinking about it in a very simple way. I want you to think about what is so powerful about Instagram. Let's talk about Instagram for a second. What Instagram knows is that deep down inside, most people are bored with their partners at home. For everybody on here who is in a relationship, most of you are bored out of your mind with your partner. So let's be honest. So what happens is Instagram knows that. So it prioritizes photos that show a lot of skin, the algorithms on Instagram prioritize any photo that shows more skin, more face. So what it's doing is it's pushing this stuff in your face because it knows that you have an unconscious longing, a deep unconscious desire to engage something different, variety. And so at the end of the day, Instagram as a brand understands behavioral science. It knows that deep down inside, It's not what I say, it's what I feel on a deep. Let me give you another simple example. You look like you like fancy things. I don't like to judge, and I don't know you, but you look like you like things.
Of course I do. Of course I do. Yeah.
So
good things. Yeah.
So if I'm a brand, I'm going, let me break down the two dimensions of your brain. Consciously, you will go, I want a Gucci bag because it's quality. That's your conscious, this is your public, your civilized self. Your conscious self goes, I want a Gucci bag because it is quality and it's going to last a long time. Then there's your unconscious primitive self, which goes, I want a Gucci bag because I want to slay. I want to show people I have arrived and that I'm a bad bitch. So you've got your primitive self and you've got your higher conscious self. This primitive self is who you're marketing to as an entrepreneur. It's this self, this deeper emotional primitive self that you're communicating to. This is who I create the colors of my brand for that version of yourself. It is the reason why, for example, when guys wear a tailored suit, okay, we button the top buttons and we leave the bottom undone. Because on a primitive level, we're trying to show you what we're working with. On a deeper level, we leave our situation open. Women, on the other hand, you button the bottom buttons and you leave the top undone. Because you want to show what you're working with. This is primitive. You're not thinking about it. You're not consciously thinking about it. It's as unconscious. So this is really important that everybody gets this, is that your marketing strategy has to be directed at the lower primitive self. And let's talk about the lower primitive self. The lower primitive self is interested in survival. The lower primitive self is interested in being the most dominant in the tribe. The lower primitive self is interested, if you got a group of girls, if you ever wondered why when you and your girls go out, you check each other out up and down, you look at each other up and down. Have you ever wondered why you do that?
No, it just happens so unconsciously. But we do.
It's one of my favorite things is to watch other women stare at other women. Next time you're out at an event or a wedding, watch how women stare at each other. There's this unconscious instinct to go, how do I measure up? How do I fit into this tribe? Am I the most dominant power in the tribe? Men do the same thing. Men have this dynamic. We measure each other. We transfer pheromones to each other. When I play basketball, I go into the basketball court. I'm looking to go, can I take him one-on-one? If I were to cross him up, will he likely embarrass me? We're constantly in stealth mode, measuring ourselves against other people. So because this is happening, your brand, if you can help people compete to be the most dominant, if you think about the it girls in South Africa, this is one of my favorite case studies. Think about the it girls in this country. Think about the Boities, the Pearls, the Ayandas, the Benans. They are consciously measuring themselves against other people. The same thing is happening with entrepreneurs. If you're a coffee shop, if you are selling furniture, if you have a business platform like yours, you got to know, where do I fit in this kingdom of business? If I'm selling hair care products, how is my product going to help you compete to feel better about who you are? Throw out the bullshit. There's too much bullshit in marketing where it's an idealistic notion of what I'm trying to do, buy my product because it's a nice thing. No. Is your product helping make people feel like they are the shit? If it's not, and if people don't walk into your business or engage you and feel better about themselves, they're not going to do it. Social media is addictive because it helps affirm people. You get a like immediately. that is affirming a deeper unconscious need to feel significant, to feel important. If you want, well, I know when I'm signing books, if I'm out signing one of my books, and if somebody takes a photo with me, if they don't feel better about themselves, I'm not doing a good job. It's not just the content. Do they feel better when they're holding my book?
Yeah.
Do they feel like I'm holding something special? Now, I can give you some other, do you have any questions so far? Because I can just keep going.
Yes, I do.
All right. Cool.
Okay, I've got a lot of questions, but I'm obviously letting you, have the platform because this is such interesting stuff for me. So, okay. So now let's get into, let's do this. All over the place. I'm just excited. Okay, now how do we then start? Okay, what is the process of building that brand that sort of resonates with people's primitive side? How do we do that? How do we build that brand that people can resonate with? Yeah.
So I call it assessing the formula. I go, let's break down the formula. Okay. So on the one side of the formula, you're going, this is my product. This is what I'm offering. Let's use your brand, Small Business Runway. Let's go through an exercise. What is your product? What are you offering the market?
So I am a full service business development agency.
Okay, let's stop there. Wait.
Okay.
So as a business development agency, you designed this product, which is to bring people ideas, information, etc., to help small businesses thrive. So separate from your agency, you have a product, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's your product. You've got a product where you bring people ideas, insights, research, case studies about how to make your small business thrive. And so that's why I'm going to bring you ideas, simple ideas about the brain to help your small business thrive. Now, then you go, okay, who is my target market? And what is my target market grappling with? What is the emotional thing that they may not admit that they are grappling with? So beyond what they say, because I want everybody to get this, you got to go beyond what people are saying to go deeper into what they have in their primitive, I call it your dormant side, that thing that's there, but you're not aware of it. So let me give you an example about what Red Bull did. Let's talk about Red Bull. Red Bull, I'm gonna give you some practical case studies. I'm not one of these people who just talk. I'm gonna give you practical case studies. So Red Bull was like, we want to be a dominant soft drink in the business. We want to go head to head with Coca-Cola. How do you go head to head with Coca-Cola? You throw out all the conscious bullshit that people say, and you go for the deeper unconscious dimension. Here's what they did. They were like, when they launched Red Bull, the world was going through a lot of chaos. There was a lot of uncertainty. So Red Bull was like, we want to help people fly. We want to help people feel like they have power. So what we're going to do is use the understanding of the brain. What the brain shows is that if something is in a smaller can, it feels like it has more power. It's like medicine. Medicine that has a smaller pill unconsciously triggers the placebo effect, or the effect that it has more medicine in it. If something tastes bad, if you taste medicine and it tastes really nice, it doesn't have the same effect on your body. If something tastes bad, it feels like it has more medicinal properties. So what they did was like, we're going to make a smaller can and we're going to make it taste a little bit off, and we're going to market it as it's like medicine. It will give you wings.
Wings, yeah.
So the idea was they broke the formula. So one of the big takeaways on this call is look at what the current formula is and try to break it. Try to break it and go for the deeper unconscious part of human psyche. Go, okay, I got a soft drink. I want to compete in that space. What are people grappling with in society? What are people dealing with? What are people struggling with? People want to feel like they're better. That they are better than this other group of people. Let me give you an example of how this all started. It started in the early 1900s with Sigmund Freud's nephew. Sigmund Freud, the great father of psychology, modern psychology, his nephew was studying his papers. His nephew was interested in the unconscious mind. So here's what his nephew did. And I'll tell you this story and we'll open it up a little bit more, okay? So early in the 1900s, they wanted to sell more cigarettes. So I want you to imagine you own a business and you're trying to sell more of it to a market that will not use your product because it makes them look bad. Can you still sell it? They wanted to sell cigarettes to women in the early 1900s, but women were not allowed to smoke. It was seen as nasty. You were not a pure woman if you were holding a cigarette. In fact, it was seen as holding a penis. So women hated cigarettes. They stayed away. So the question was, how can we get women to buy cigarettes because it will double the market size? What would you have done? You are a businesswoman, you got an agency. What would you have done? Because if you can get women smoking cigarettes, you can double the market size. What would you have done?
Gosh.
I'm putting pressure. I'm putting pressure.
I know, but so I mean, in 2020, I would give it to a Bonang.
Okay.
Get Bonang to smoke.
Okay.
Is influencer marketing too much of is that an easy way out?
Yeah, that's an easy way out. So let's go back a bit. Let me give you the context. In the early 1900s, women in America, they couldn't vote yet. They were fighting for liberation. So let's look at the context. So he was like, I'm trying to sell cigarettes. This is my product. And I'm trying to sell it to this demographic. What do they want on their unconscious mind? Consciously. Consciously, I can't be seen with a cigarette. But unconsciously, they wanted freedom.
Yes.
What's so sexy? No, they wanted something deeper. Women are more complicated. Women are much more deep than that. So women wanted to be free. So what he did, he linked the product with their unconscious mind. He said they had a parade in New York. So what he did was he gave 10 women that were fairly well known. He gave them a cigarette and he says, hold them in your palm of your hand, light them up, but don't smoke. Just light the cigarette up, hold it in your fist. He took a photo in the middle of this parade of these women holding this cigarette in their fist. And then the next day, he put out a statement saying these women were holding torches, flames of freedom. So women start buying cigarettes, not because they wanted to smoke, but to hold a freedom symbol. And this is the power of behavioral science, is that every customer, every consumer has a deeper unconscious emotional reason why they buy. And that's the dimension that you're trying to communicate to. If you look at the average South African right now, you look across the country, you go, if you ask people what they want, they're going to tell you, yeah, I want this. But then deep down inside, they want to slay. They want to be the baddest bitch in their tribe. They want to show up at the bride, rolling. You know, people want to feel like they are in the top. They want to escape pain. They want to escape misery. So you've got to communicate to that dimension. Now, when it comes to understanding this, let me give you another example. Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud's nephew, did the same thing with bacon. Did you know that bacon was never eaten at breakfast? The pork industry, the pork industry called him and said, look, we need to sell, we've got an oversupply of this bacon. So what he did was he took CEOs, he put them in a campaign, and he said, tell the camera that your success as a CEO comes because you eat this in the morning.
Wow.
So people want to be CEOs. People want to feel powerful. People want to feel like they're on top of their game. So people incorporated it into their breakfast. And it's been like that since the early 1900s. We go out for breakfast, we order bacon, and we have no idea that this was all bull crap. Now, there's an ethical dimension to this, Tina. There's an ethical dimension. You can't push this narrative to a point where you're manipulating people into something that's bad. The cigarette example is problematic because now we're in a stage where women are free, they're liberated, they're not going to just accept this type of dynamic. So you got to be smart and understand where people are now. What are the things that make people move now? This is not, you can't look at an example from 1990, you know? Patriarchy, for example, is crumbling. Why? Because women now know their rights. So for hundreds of years, the society was controlled so much by men that we communicated a particular standard. Now that women are educated, women are fighting for their rights, women as consumers, you got to communicate to where they are now. What do women want now? And men as well, understand where men are. Men are, you know, in this fascinating dynamic where we got one foot in the past, one foot in the future. We're all over the place. We're confused. So if you can help communicate to who we are now, then you start. And I go back to Maps because Maps is a great example. Maps is aspirational. He partners with brands like Investec. He goes for the top echelon of things. It's who he is. His mind thinks very articulate. He's very disciplined in his thinking. I know Maps very well. When he goes and he approaches a project, he's thinking very high level. So what he's doing is he's taking his consumer at buns out, and he's going, I want to give them an experience to bring them to this space to how I see the world. And so this is very important that you understand your product, what's happening in the unconscious mind, can come across in a messaging campaign where you use symbolism, where you use the ideas that mean something deep to you to connect to people's unconscious mind. Okay, back to you. Sorry, you know me. I can keep going.
Listen, yeah. I'm interested in those. So you've given us the, you know, the basic, you know, the overview of like the formula, you know. Don't look at what people are, you know, what's happening in the market now. If you want to kind of enter a space, you know, you need to start thinking about how you can then appeal. I'm putting it in very simple English, but how you can appeal to people's subconscious mind. But I'm curious to know then, is this obviously, you know, what people want and need innately changes over the years and over, you know, over the decades. But do you think then there's a general sort of like right now, like you said, you know, people, you know, women are interested in like slaying, you know, being seen as the top, the boss, the best in their industry, in their game. Should we look at this as the overall? So what I'm asking is, are we looking at this as like what's happening in the world right now versus what's happening in my specific industry?
Yeah, I mean, they overlap. So for example, let's say, for example, you're going for a group of corporate women, not the Benungs, not the Boitis, none of them. Your market is 35, 40-year-old professional women in banking. That's your segment, okay? Then you go, what are these women facing? These women are facing, for example, there are a lot of us useless men out there. So a lot of these women are single mothers. There are a lot of women out there who are, and there's some really great guys out there. So that's not my point, though, is look at the data. There's a lot of single women who are running corporates, who are doctors, who are lawyers, who are raising kids by themselves. So you go, okay, my market, my demographic are women who are taxed socially. They've got a lot of pressure on them. They've got a lot of challenges that they're facing, for example. So if that's my market, how do I make their journey easier? How do I provide a feeling? How do I provide a feeling for them when they're going in their corporate journey where they feel they have an escape from the pressure that they're feeling? That when they wear the product, that they engage your brand, you remove the resistance. We call that optimal flow in the brain. How do we create a bit more flow for them so that all of the stress and all the challenges they're faced? I've got one of my clients at the moment. She's one of the people that helped design help invest in the Ria Via buses. So we're talking about her life, and she's got 3 kids. She's a power player, but she's studying. She's got all these challenges. And she was like, the bus system needs to be designed for women who are busy. How do we redesign the buses for these women who are the target market? So you got to be thinking just like that. You got to go, okay, if I'm going after a demographic, and I know that your demographic will be diverse, you're going to have all types of people. Maybe you got a Boite type, maybe you got a professional type, etc. But kind of bring them together, look at some of the common threads that we're all facing. And what are some of the pressures? What are some of the challenges that people don't talk about? And how do you know these things? Twitter is a research database. Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook. People tell you what they're facing. Pay attention, study your market, right? If you can't hire somebody to study it for you, study it yourself. Pay attention. There's a great quote, a Chinese quote by Confucius. It says, a person will reveal themselves. Pay attention long enough, we open up who we really are at a deep level.
Yeah. Is it important to also keep sort of tabs and know what's happening? I know you obviously spoke on it earlier on, but specifically on like competitors, people in the same market as you, are we kind of, should we be like, as entrepreneurs, let me build the best value to my customers? Or are we, how far should we be looking, or how deep into our competitors should we also be looking?
Dude, that's everything. If I'm trying to build a burger brand, how will I compete with Maps? I'm not as handsome. I'm not as popular. So I can't go with the celebrity angle. I got to go with a completely different angle. I got to do something emotional, something that's creative, something that completely takes him out the conversation. So let's say, for example, I decide I'm going to use my experience having written for a female magazine for 10 years. And let's say I'm going to go straight for the female market, right? And I decide I'm going to pitch it in a way where I get a few guys and a few different types of people there that are going to draw that particular market in. But what I'm not going to do, let's say, for example, I'm going to have film nights. Maybe what I do on certain nights is I have a few TVs in and I show these type of films that are more conscious, and then they are scripted and people feel like they're part of something different. But I can't go for the same dynamic. I got to break the formula, as I said earlier. I got to break the formula. If I know what Maps' formula is, or whatever your competition's formula is, like the Red Bull, I can't go for the refreshing. I got to go for give you wings. I got to go for the medicinal approach, the smaller can. I got to break the formula. The only way you can break the formula is you got to know the other formula.
Yeah. Now in business, now also, we're obviously trying to get customers, and then, especially specifically for small business owners and entrepreneurs, there's also us trying to get, angel investors, funders, anybody that will invest in our business. Does the same type of thinking work when we're trying to get customers and when we're trying to get investors and people to actually, put money into the business?
So let's look at it this way. what does an angel investor, what are they looking for? Oftentimes, people will give you money based on the strength of your personality, based on the strength of how they feel about you, based on the strength. So many millions change hands across the world with angel investors, because people go, I want to invest in you. Do you inspire confidence? How much do you know about your market? How clued up are you when it comes to your stuff? Do you know more than the next person? And beyond the business plan, beyond your analysis of the market, you've got to be positioning yourself to be able to capture the hearts, the emotional dimension of people, of investors. People got to feel like there's a cause, there's something different about you. There is something about your idea that's transformative, that is much bigger than just the business. If you want people to invest in you, position yourself in a way, maybe there's a little bit of swag, maybe there is a bit of conviction that comes from your spiritual life. Maybe you're so anchored in your spiritual walk and your understanding of culture, your understanding of where you come from, that you transcend the logic of what people are looking for. They go, I just feel like investing in you. And I'm telling you, I remember when Kanye Dlomo came up to me and said, I want you to write, this is a great example. Kanye Dlomo came up to me and said, I want you to write a column for my female magazine. This is when the magazine Destiny Women had just launched. There was no other columnist, and there definitely was no male columnist. She said to me, my gut is saying I want to have you as a male columnist. And at that time, it cost like 50,000 Rand to advertise on one page. So she was giving me 50,000 worth of advertising every month. Do the math. I wrote that column every month for 10 straight years. You do the math. How much free advertising did she give me? That was an investment. That was an investment in me of more than 1 million Rand. Every month, I was getting 40, 50,000 worth of free advertising. Why? Because in that talk that day, I told a story about why I dedicated my career to my mother, and about why I dedicated my career to women who went through what my mom went through. Women who worked the same job as a man but got paid less. I told that story about what it was like to watch my mom do the same job as my dad, but she got paid less. And that's why I dedicated my career to my mom. Immediately, that triggered something in her. That was not about logic. That was about a deeper emotional connection that led to me 10 years writing a column for one of the top magazines. It was not about logic. It was about an emotional logic. It was much deeper. And so if you want people to invest in you, want people to buy into you, be more committed to something different. Be committed to something and clear about your story. Be committed to something that is like, whoa, I didn't expect that from him. I didn't expect that from her. And think of it this way. If everybody is doing something, breaking the formula is going, most guys are writing for men's magazine. Let me break the formula and write for a women's magazine. Most people are selling burgers where it's about how good the burger tastes. I'm going to sell a burger where it's about the experience of feeling like I'm in a cool environment. Maybe you're selling furniture. Instead of selling furniture, maybe sell that you are creating a home where people can feel safe. But whatever it is, think about what people want on the deeper subconscious level, okay?
Yeah. Is this, are we looking at like words? Are there like specific words that could, that help us, you know, with this? Is it stories that people, you know, are drawn to? Is it, you know, the way we look, the way we are dressed? Because somehow, I do believe it's a combination of everything. But I'm almost trying to kind of ascertain what's like the what's the best, or is it everything? Is it the way you look, what you say, your story, certain words?
Yeah, so everything you just mentioned has a specific behavioral dimension. So for example, there's a concept in behavioral science called choice architecture. And you can give, let's say for example, I do a business pitch. What you want to do is give people 3 options. If you know that the option you want them to choose is option A, then what you're going to do is give a competitive option, something that is similar but has a little bit more depth or a little less depth. And then you want to give people a dummy option. Option C is something that you know they're not going to choose. Because what you do is you trigger parts of the brain that wants to make decisions, the prefrontal cortex. But if you only give people one option, you're not triggering the part of the brain where you want to make decisions. And if you give people 6 options, you put them into choice paralysis. They don't know what to choose. So even if you are selling shoes, for example, give people 3 options. The ideal option, another option that's a little bit more complex, and then an option that you know they won't choose. That's called choice architecture. Okay? Then you have what we call the endowment effect. The endowment effect is where you tell stories. Let's say you're selling a car. You're selling a car. You tell people a story about where they can drive this car, what they will feel like in the car. Where, let's say, for example, I'm trying to sell you a car and I know you want a sleigh, okay? So I can say, you and your girls, I'll tell you a story about a girls' night out. I'm like, imagine you going to pick up your girls and you just had a tough working week because you are a banker, you have an agency, your other girlfriend is a lawyer, your other girlfriend is a doctor. You go pick up your girlfriends, it's a Friday night, you're going to go to the hottest spot in town, etc. What I've done is create an emotional story to link to your deeper values and your needs, and all of a sudden you see the car's value going up. That's called the endowment effect. You've endowed the car with a story. Okay? So it's language, stories, positioning, color, all of this stuff. Obviously, we can't go through all of it in one hour conversation. That's why I do a weekly podcast, The Brain and Brand Show. You make sure you subscribe to The Brain and Brand Show. In fact, I'm doing a 3-part series right now, about everything that I'm talking about. And so part 3 comes out on Thursday. But Brain and Brand Show. I actually, I'm not one of these people go, please support my podcast. No, my podcast is listened to in 32 countries. And you know why? Because I'm talking about the brain of somebody in Serbia, the brain of somebody in South Korea, in Soweto, in Lagos, in New York. They're the same. We got the same brains. So I'm talking about the brain. And I really, if you do get a chance to listen, I'm grateful. If you don't, if it's not your thing, I'm also cool with that. Find your space. Just learn more about the brain. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Timothy, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you a question and then, tell people where to, where we can find you. Obviously, the Brain and Brand podcast. But can you just quickly touch on maybe then the physical attributes? So, I asked actually one of our previous guests, Nozi Boshabalala, before, what she thinks about, because sometimes I'm building a brand, I'm building a business, advocate for SMEs, but sometimes I do want to come into my lives just wearing a simple, just plain t-shirt, and that's just what I want to wear on that day. But how important is then your appearance, your physical, aesthetic, and all of that when you're building a brand and business?
Okay, so I hate using a lot of big terms on a live because you don't have enough time, but there's a concept, if you want to research it, called embodied cognition, okay? Embodied cognition.
Yeah.
And the idea of embodied cognition is the texture, the pattern, the color, of your garments influence your energy and your emotions. So, for example, pinstripe suits come from the post-Victorian period, where you remember in the UK, in the British era, they used to wear those very fluffy, everything was big and over the top. You remember that? You see that in movies, right? So when they decided we wanted to create a professional class, they brought academics, business people, fabric weavers together. And they said, we want to create a look, an image that is like thinking through the lines. It's like an accountant ledger. It's like being disciplined. And so the fabric weavers came back with pinstripe fabric. Pinstripe comes from the idea that they wanted people to feel like they're disciplined, they're thinking through the lines, that they are focused between lines. That's where pinstripe comes from. It's not random. So when you are dressing up, you got to go, what am I dressing up for? Am I dressing up to reduce doubt? Am I dressing up to trigger and arouse somebody to be interested in my mind? Or am I dressing up to inspire someone to be interested in my fertility, to show you how hot I am? Am I trying to get you to buy into my youthfulness? If you're 80 years old and you're still in business, it wouldn't make sense to wear a push-up bra to a business, right? Because you're not in that space anymore. You're not in that fertility window. But you got to be clear about what you're trying to communicate. In your case, you should be trying to communicate conviction, trust in your platform. You should be trying to wear clothes and accessories that trigger what you're trying to communicate to your data. So if you're trying to communicate, I am pro-Afro conscious, you put a couple of accessories that show cultural heritage. If you're trying to show discipline, you make sure you're doing what you wear now, where you wear a collared shirt. A collared structured shirt or a top communicates strength, discipline, and power. So you've got your Afrocentric element in your clothing, you've got your structured discipline elements in your clothing, you've got everything in you that communicates to the subconscious mind of who's watching that I'm serious. Why do I have these books behind me? Because you don't think of black people and books. When you think of young black Americans, you think of Chris Brown, you think of hip hop, J. Cole. You don't think of books. So I'm communicating to the unconscious mind to associate me with books as an author. So you've got to be saying to yourself, whether it's my clothes or my background, what am I trying to communicate on a deeper unconscious level? And oftentimes we get caught up in just focusing on looking hot. Is that enough? Ask yourself, is looking hot going to get you the commitment, the trust, the investment? If not, figure out how to look hot and try to communicate trust, confidence, and discipline. And we can have a whole nother live on just image alone.
Yeah. Ooh, Timothy, this has been such an interesting conversation. Tell people where they can find you. So Brain and Brand podcast.
Spotify, Apple, everywhere. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can go and find my podcast. I interview leading people around the world. You can follow me on Insta Timothy. And on Insta Timothy, you can find all my other stuff. So yeah, let's hang out. Let's take this journey together. I'm still learning about the brain. I'm still studying. I went back to school a few years ago to MIT to study. I wanted to go to the best school in the world to understand this stuff. So I went back to MIT to study applied neuroscience. Now I'm doing a Harvard program where I'm looking at the mechanics, the biology of this. Because I want to go deep. Because we're not having the best conversations. I want to know the deepest stuff about what's happening in our brains and our bodies to help give people a competitive advantage so that you can go out there and accomplish your goals and dreams and be ahead of the curve with the best information.
Yeah, and slay. While you at it.
And slay. There's nothing wrong with slaying.
Yeah, of course. Timothy, what is then the legacy that you want to leave in the world?
My legacy, I want people to go, he was not afraid to get people thinking about human behavior. He was not afraid to get people to go to places that people were shit scared to talk about. I want people to go to the deepest part of why we tick as human beings. What makes us move from A to B in our deepest nervous system, in our deepest unconscious mind? That's a very dark place, and most people are too scared to go there. And I want people to go, he helped me go there, and he made it simple.
Amazing. Alrighty. So, Timothy, thank you so much for your time. It's really been an amazing one, and I'm sure. So everybody that's wondering, we are going to save this live for you guys to watch and catch up on later. But go ahead, please, and for the Brain and Brand podcast on all podcast platforms, as well as follow Timothy on Insta Timothy to find all of his other work, and of course his 5 books that he's a best-selling author on. But Timothy, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate this.
Thank you. You're amazing. Keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All righty. Salute. All right, so to everybody that wants to catch up on the live, I will be saving it and posting it up for you guys. But do me a favor and just share it to as many of your friends and your platforms as possible. Timothy was really just such a breath of fresh air, just helping us to think about what makes people actually buy into our brands and our businesses, which is something that we definitely need as small business owners. So go ahead and share this live, screenshot whatever piece or part that resonated with you the most, and make sure that you tag Small Business Runway as well as Insta Timothy, Timothy Maurice. Whew, it's been an amazing one. I will see you guys next week with another guest. So stay tuned for the Small Business Runway IG Live. From me to you guys, it's nothing but love. Have a very good night. Salute.